Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Marc Joffe again. I have a pretty exciting panel with you about the state of Ohio. Um, our two speakers are uh, Megan Kilgore and Bob Hinkle. Megan Kilgore oversees 7 departments tasked with I for sure should say Megan Kilgore is the elected city auditor of the city of Columbus, Ohio. Megan oversees 7 departments tasked with the collection of revenues, including $1.1 billion in income tax, maintaining the city's $4.8 billion debt portfolio, carrying out all debt issuance and investor relations, overseeing the city's $2.5 billion investment portfolio, managing citywide accounting and operations, producing the ACFR and other financial reports, and providing payroll services for the city's 9,400 employees. If you go to page 13 of the guide, you can see Megan's notable accomplishments, which we'll cover during this session as well. And our other speaker is Bob Hinkle, the Chief Deputy Auditor in the Ohio Auditor State's Office. Bob works for Keith Faber in that capacity. Bob was initially appointed to his current role in March 1st of 2006. This appointment continues a career with the Auditor's Office that started all the way back in September 1984, and I was actually also employed at that time, so we go back a long way, as a staff auditor. Bob was promoted through the staff and management ranks of the office until his eventual appointment to Chief Deputy Auditor. Bob is the first Chief Deputy Auditor to have the privilege to serve in the position through 4 different administrations. So if you go to XBRL US's website, you'll see a blog post that I authored about a month and a half ago, where I did a review of state websites, state auditor, controller, treasurer websites. And I found that 18 states collect structured financial data from their local governments on an annual basis. One state that performs especially detailed data collection is Ohio, where the state auditor's office analyzes the data to identify cases of fiscal distress. Ohio is also a leader in audit timeliness, with GAAP filers required to file their annual financial statements within 150 days of year end. And that contrasts with 180 days, which is typical in the municipal market, and 9 months, as Kenny pointed out, for single audit. So Ohio is particularly aggressive about timeliness. The city of Columbus, however, regularly trounces this target, regularly filing its act for 90 days after the city's December 31st closing date, giving you really corporate level performance, which is very impressive. So before I ask some questions, I'm going to turn it over first to Bob and then to Megan to describe the innovations taking place in Ohio. Bob?
Thank you, Marc, and thanks for the opportunity to be here and the privilege. Oh, thanks, Megan. Thanks for the privilege to be with this group. I've already learned a number of things this morning in hearing from the different speakers. As Marc shared, I work for an elected official. Keith Faber is our elected state auditor in Ohio, and the auditor is elected for a 4-year term and then is term limited to 2 terms. So work with different administrations every 8 years in this process, which can be a challenge in getting projects going, completed before you would have a different administration come in with some different thoughts. In the auditor's office, we're about 800 employees strong. We have 630 auditors in that group, and then we have 40 additional performance audit staff that do performance audit work. We do financial compliance work. We have a local government services division that does consulting. We have a performance audit division, a Medicaid audit contract division, and then we do some special investigative work also in the fraud issues that are identified in Ohio. We have 5,900 plus clients that we serve. That goes all the way from, we do the audit for the state of Ohio, the single audit for the state of Ohio, and all the state agencies, boards, and commissions. We're responsible for the colleges and universities, and then about 5,600 plus units of local government. And they range in size from some of the largest, city of Columbus, to some very small special purpose governments that may be working with a $20,000 budget on an annual basis. So we do audits for those. They all have an annual reporting responsibility to the auditor's office, and then we do audits either on an annual basis or a biannual basis. The annual basis is going to be driven by the Single Audit Act, by debt requirements, and or by client preference if they would choose to do that. GAAP reporting in Ohio also is not all entities are required to report on GAAP for Ohio. We've heard a little bit about that earlier today. County governments, city governments, and school districts, and then some of the smaller special purpose local governments are required to report GAAP. All the other entities either report on a OCBOA, cash basis, regulatory basis, and there's not a standard chart of accounts in Ohio either, which is a significant challenge. So as I said, there's an annual filing requirement for statements, and then we do annual audits. And we do those audits in conjunction with the CPA community. The auditor's office does about 55% of that work, and we contract with three-party contracts with a firm and the client, usually on a 5-year basis, rotating with a firm that will do some of the audit work as well. And then we have responsibility for reviewing that work. We have continually tried to use different tools to make our processes better, both for the firms that serve the constituencies in Ohio and our clients. And so I'll save some of that to as we go through some questions and turn it over to Megan.
I love being in locations like we are today because, as Marc shared, the 90 days completion time of the City of Columbus's ACFR, it's like being in a Taylor Swift concert. Y'all were really happy. You were nodding, and I was always delighted to see that. We have a history of financial excellence that was built well before I ever came into office. I ran for office in 2017, began a term in 2018, but for years we had an incredible history of fiscal excellence, self-imposed 90 days. And the woman responsible for that is Deputy Darlene Wilds, who's in the back. She's a governmental CPA, and she recognized the power of the program. When you build it and you have an incredible team and you really do year-round preparation for our annual ACFR, we can get it done. But contextually, I have to acknowledge that we're the anomaly. We are a AAA triple. We are the highest, we're the largest city in America to maintain 3 AAA ratings. Marc rattled off some kind of facts about the city of Columbus, but point is contextually, we're really an anomaly. My objective, though, today is really to try and humanize this conversation. I think a lot of times when technology is being discussed, it's about getting from point A to point B in the fastest manner possible. But we sometimes forget the human implications, and I really want to try and maybe share some light on that today. What has changed, though, after kind of building out this program of our annual ACFR is several things. And I have to tell you, like, we knew by the 300-plus page report on our beautifully bound book that's on our shelf, we knew that we had kind of nailed financial reporting, but we hadn't nailed financial communication. There is a really, 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 really big difference. And so we look at as we can, technology as being an incredible partner or a co-pilot to help us be better communicators of our financials, not just, of course, to our local council, to our mayor, to folks within our community, our residents, to our investors, to our bondholders, to Congress. And I want to share with you, because I think it does provide some interesting parallels right now. We went through a modernization plan. Again, frankly, quite anomalous to a lot of where local governments are. But in 5 years, we took out those 40-year-old systems. We took out 3 of them, written in languages that I don't understand, COBOL and things like that. And then we put in 3 brand new state-of-the-art, very forward-thinking, ready to grow as our community grows systems. But it's only because of that infrastructure that, frankly, we can do the task that we're doing. And it's, for example, taking incredible data from MSRB's labs, and Carl's here somewhere, and dumping that into our system to be able to make some inferences. Or using our platform, which we went to an accounting and operations system, Microsoft D365. And so it's only because of that we're able to do some of this very fast-paced work that I think, as many of us in this audience might hold governments, they expect them to just be able to do. But it's because of where we are in our technological journey that we're probably a lot better. We are better positioned. So throughout today, and I really hope this is a robust conversation, but I'll try and provide some examples of where we are in our journey, what brought me to want to be able to present to this very, very impressive group of attendees and share little insights from what we're hearing.
Great. Okay, so I'll start off with the Q&A, and if you have questions, please use Slido or handwrite your question and give it to one of our XBRL US organizers. So Megan, can you elaborate on how Columbus goes about collecting and reporting its accounting data?
Yeah, sure. As I referenced, we use Microsoft D365 as our accounting and operations system. We did migrate. We've actually improved upon our accounting and operations systems more frequently than we have others. But throughout the entire year, the ACFR, all of our audit program, it's a 12-month process. We have a very robust team of individuals. Just serendipitously, I see Marc selected a page out of our ACFR that has my picture, but it more importantly has the number of people who help produce the ACFR at the City of Columbus. That's a lot of people. That is more individuals, more financially minded individuals than I would say the bread and butter governments of our country often have. And so, as we're kind of here today, we probably should acknowledge that, our technology provides the ability, if I can say this, during the conversation earlier, I think there's sometimes a misperception of what it means for like our numbers to come out of our system. And what I mean by that is, it's not just a one button thing. We have the most advanced system in the country, in my opinion. It's not just downloading that trial balance and letting everyone in the world have access to it, because we are obligated to maintain our financials in cash basis and modified accrual and in full accrual. And so I kind of want to make that double down on that a little bit. That is a lot more complexity than just kind of inherently data dropping.
Yes, I follow you. Bob, how does the state currently collect local government financial data?
Yeah, so a little bit of a history in that area. When I started this job, we collected all that, 5,900 those financial statements in paper is where that started. We'd get them in the mail. We would get them dropped off at the office. You get them in, and then we started getting some of that information electronically. They would be emailed to us, and or gotten to us in different different types of mediums. And so I started a process, and again, it was a process because it took a couple administrations to get it accomplished. But we now have a reporting system where we gather with up to 734 different elements from the financial statements in what's called the Hinkle system. Now there are a number of jokes about that. Like I think I have the best joke, and that is all they did was create Hinkle as a bad word in certain circles. But so again, I don't much as Megan has shared. I'm not a tech guy. It was my idea of how we could do this, and then we had a lot smarter people than me that put a system together. But even in that, we collect 734 different elements out of an ACFR or out of a set of basic financial statements. I've heard that there can be up to, different people will use different numbers, but somewhere 25,000 elements are tagged in an aquifer. So we're only collecting 734 of those, and we are advanced right now in that regard. And then we get the rest of as all those entities submit financial information to us on an annual basis. They key that information in currently, and then they upload a PDF of their entire financial statements. And then while we use the keyed in information for different purposes, a lot of the audit work is still done off of that PDF document, and is again labor intensive as we pull numbers out of it.
So there's a website that each local government goes to, or many of the local governments go to. They key in up to 734 financial statement items, and then they upload their PDF. So when Shannon Soul, who was at Northern Illinois University at the time, and I established the working group, one of the things that we felt was this is going to save governments a lot of time and effort. Ohio has the number 2 largest number of governments. Illinois has the number 1 number of governments, and both of those have an annual state reporting requirement. And we always thought, well, if a government could just supply an inline XBRL aquifer, those could be automatically pulled off of the document, and then that would save this extra data keying. So that's why, personally, I'm really excited, as you can tell, about inline XBRL, and I think it would save the state a lot of effort. And we'll demo that a little later. Bob, in the prep call for our conversation, you said, quote, "The aquifer should be a management tool rather than a book on the shelf." So could you elaborate on that? And I'd like Megan's comments on that as well.
Yes. So again, somewhat repeating what was shared with our Michigan folks earlier, and this is one thing that Ohio and Michigan don't agree on very many things, but we agree on this, and that is that too often our local governments buy this aquifer. They have a consultant come in and do it, and they don't participate much in the process, other than they'll give them access to their general ledger package and those things that they need, but then they don't know what's in that. It becomes a book on the shelf that they can get an award for, instead of a management tool that they can take to their council, they can take to their school board, they can take to their county commissioners, and sit down and talk to them about, here's where we're at, in this area. Here are our costs here, and so they just don't use it as a tool. It really is a book on the shelf. Somebody asked me, well, can you put a number on that? And I believe in Ohio, 25% is probably the high side of those that have staff that do it themselves, that then use it as a management tool. The other 75% probably buy it, and it becomes, like I say, the book on the shelf.
As a leader in public finance, I am most excited about being able to create a living ecosystem of data. And as that living ecosystem continues to grow and gain years of data, we all will benefit. We will benefit from, frankly, our knowledge. We will be able, as local governments, to make more informed decisions. We will also be able to be more informed. Congress will be able to be more informed as it pertains to kind of the nuts and bolts of local governments across the country. So inherently, the idea of it being a living ecosystem, I am super excited about. I will share, I was a former municipal advisor, and a lot of my comments today are really more coming from kind of that hat, especially. And, we still, in my office, we take a lot of PDFs and we recreate. And it's really an interesting period in our technological life, because a year ago, we were still largely taking PDFs and manually inputting data. And I'll give you a very simple example. Fitch does their annual comparison of water and sewer systems across the country. We would take that because we use that to compare how we shook out, and we'd manually key it in. Well, just in the last 12 months, what has happened, and thankfully we have some really, really smart young interns in our office who are wickedly in the know as it pertains to the power of things like AI. But now we no longer have to manually input because we're able to use some low code software and to immediately bring those PDFs to our life. They go into incredibly fantastic Excel files that allow easy manipulation. And that's just the beginning. And so I'm really, why we're here too as a city, and I think Bob feels the same way too, is that we have a history of, I will call us a guinea pig, if you will, but whether it's GASB rolling out a new implementation or the GFOA's noodling on something, oftentimes we're called to say, well, how will this affect you? And we're able to also call, equally as important, the other cities around Ohio of populations of 5,000 and 10,000 and more. And I cherish that. I think it's a really, really good thing, and I'm really, really proud of it. But that's why we've taken steps into this world of XBRL, putting our ACFR in XBRL just to be more informed, to be more knowledgeable. And even though I can sincerely attest to this, I'm technology agnostic as long as it best meets the needs of the bread and butter local governments across the nation.
Great. Coming in on the Slido, here's a tough question for you, Megan.
No.
Can you hazard a guess as to how much it would cost another government, another city that currently has an antiquated financial system to upgrade to the kind of state-of-the-art implementation that you have at Columbus?
There's no reasonable way that I could answer that without knowing age, detail, numbers of people, personnel on site, things like that. But I would be delighted, more importantly, the smart one in the room in the back, who's really the expert here, during the reception to maybe chat with some folks if they're really interested.
Okay, great. What strategies have you adopted to optimize access to government financial data within your own government? And that's for both of you.
Yeah, so I mentioned that how we used to receive those financial statements in paper, and before we had the Hinkle system, we have a responsibility not only for audit and for fiscal distress monitoring in Ohio, but we also have responsibility to report to the legislature certain elements within those financial statements there's 1,308 townships in Ohio. So combining all that information, getting it to the legislature so they are aware of that information so they can utilize it in their process. And so what the Hinkle system allowed us to do is we instead of us taking months to go through all that paper and put that information together and key it in, now we get that out of our Hinkle system, with again, it's a little bit more than the touch of a button, but it really is, and it's available to the legislature. They have the ability to portal in and get that information themselves and their staffs whenever they want it. So that's one of the things that we've done that already that has moved it forward. If this process is successful, and what we're working on now with this pilot, where the clients don't have to keep that in to the Hinkle system, then ideally they send it in, it gets uploaded, and then again it's available for our legislature, and then we have the public record requirements in Ohio as that information comes in, we have to make it available to certain aspects, along with our audit reports. So once we have if we have machine readable capability, we're going to be able to do a whole lot more that sharing, making it available. But the concern for us in the auditor's office is, what does it cost those local governments to be able to do that? We would love to be able to have a system that tags it once it comes into the auditor's office, into that system, so that our local governments don't have to deal with it. Again, I'm not smart enough to know that can even happen and how that would happen. But the other piece of that is, right now, as I said before, we only collect 734 elements. For us to be able to be able to take an upload of an entire ACFR that has been tagged with XBRL or some other product, we have to significantly expand our capabilities to ingest that information.
The Power Platform, Microsoft Power Platform that I referenced in my initial remarks, it's allowed us to put everything on the cloud. We have a tendency with the Azure cloud. And just imagine, at 5 years ago, there were very disparate systems. Now those systems are all able to communicate with respect to their data. And so we've been able to understand correlations, to make predictions, to understand ourselves in ways that we really never have before. That the word optimization is actually our theme for 2024 as an office. I kind of want to address something too, that getting back to that human factor. I'm really, really excited about, there are a number of vendors in this room, vendors who are working to help governments kind of transform their data to make it tell a story. That's the power of public finance, is we can take, whether it's an inequity, a social ill, outdated infrastructure, or whatever else that is fundamental to government, and to help make that right using the public finance world. That is a power that I don't think any other industry in this country has. And I really do believe that, the nature, there are a number of professors and teachers who spoke earlier. I also teach at the Glenn College, and I've never had more students question, are they in the right field? Because what they perceive at a national level, at different parts of the national level, is challenging. And I really do believe that the salvation of our country, I really do, lies in our local governments. And the vendors that are in this room can help, as we have this living ecosystem of data, provide even better recommendations, even better solutions, and lift up ideas that local governments absolutely want to hear. They just need some help getting there to the finish line. And I'll give you an example that, this is taking this back to a very human-centric approach. We are an income tax-driven city. About just shy of 80% of our general fund is funded by income tax. And so just consider that wages power our city's tax base. So if you were to imagine that, specific policies, we're not a policy-minded office. I can make suggestions, but that's what council does. But if we make very strategic investments in certain areas of our economy that are underemployed, we can create a self-fulfilling prophecy of a stronger tax base. And during the pandemic, we took proxy data and our own data and all kinds of, as you all know, PPP, those forms are largely colorblind. You didn't know the demographics of the individual. So we had to use census tract data and a bunch of other sources of data to try and right the ship that we quickly saw happening, which was the first tranche went overwhelmingly to highly sophisticated businesses, largely not the people who were most at risk. And so using all of that pool of data, and I will say I have really smart people working on this. I watched this using AI, these proxies come to life, merging with our income tax collections, and we were able to make those recommendations to our local banks. We also did the same thing with childcare workers, where we saw so many were not in a position to learn or earn without thoughtful incentivization to get those individuals back into positions of work, which improved our economy. Those are two tangible examples. There's a lot of what we're talking about is data, but there's a very human-centric, consequence or benefit of this idea as well.
Thanks. Thanks for all the questions. I apologize, I can't get to quite all of them, but I'm going to try to wrap up two quick questions for Bob in one. So first is, how did you arrive at the 750 elements? Where was the cutoff there? And then second, are there things that the state auditor can do to help smaller local governments more easily produce their data?
Yeah. So on the 734 elements that we gathered, that was built off of, again, we wanted to get the, we gathered general fund data, we got the governmental entity-wide data. So we have financial health indicators that we had done, again, in a manual process up until this point. So there's 17 different ratios and comparisons that we do for those financial health indicators. We wanted to make sure that we gathered all that data so that then we could make that an automatic process as well. And so that played into it. And it also, what the legislature was asking us to provide to them. All that played into the elements that we gathered. We also knew that we did all this in house. We didn't get any additional dollars to do it, and so it was also driven by the resource and the time element of wanting to get it in place at a certain point. So those all drew that were the driving forces behind those elements. The second part,
assisting smaller governments.
Yeah,
I believe
so-
you provide software, don't you?
yeah. So we in Ohio we have we provide it's a uniform accounting network. We have 2,000 of the smallest local governments in Ohio. Again, it's open to others, but we have about 2,000 users of it. We provide the accounting system. We provide the laptop, the printer, everything for them for that system, and then they own their data that goes into the system. But then we also have the ability through that system, if they make certain selections, they can have their financial reports just automatically generated out of that accounting system that comes to the Hinkle system, and so they really can file with answer a couple questions, and they touching a button, and their financials are done for them. And so those are some of the things we've done to assist the local governments.
I won't ask you to speculate, but it seems to me, coming from a technology background, that system could potentially be upgraded to have an inline XBRL output, and then that way those small governments would be able to meet their reporting requirements under the FDTA if they were also bond issuers.
Yeah, and again, that's Bob's my wish, my hope that we can do that, because my biggest concern is I think there's more cost here than what we sometimes hear about, and also our local governments in Ohio, they just don't have the resources to be able to do it, or the capability in some of them to be able to do it. So if we can do that for them through that uniform accounting network system or through the Hinkle system, then I think that's a great benefit to our local governments.
Thanks.
If I can too, I want to chime in because I want to ask you a question too, Bob. In every single conversation that I've had with local governments, and especially largely the Midwest, the questions we always ask ourselves, about the FDTA, it's the who's doing the taxonomy, it's the what is the platform and language, when is a really big question, of course, but why? I have not heard one single government say why is a problem. They all know why. They see the benefit. Do you agree with that too?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The benefit of this, I think, can be can it make a huge change for our local government community. It's how do we get there, and those questions. So I think, and again, I think that local governments get it. They are sometimes inundated with public records requests. This is just another example where they can put their data out there. In Ohio, we have the Ohio checkbook. That again, that's another, again, not the auditor's office, the Ohio treasurer's office that made that, stood that system up. And again, it was changed, made a lot of changes for a number of communities because so much of their data now is more available. This just takes it to the next level.
And as I recall, the treasurer's office contracted with a single vendor and then basically resold that same solution to all the cities so then they could scale up.
I'm not exactly sure how that worked, but yes.
So with the remaining time we have, I just wanted to show you a little demo that we created in preparation for this. So Megan commissioned IGM Technology Corp to work with their Gravity solution. IGM is a member of XBRL US, to take the 2022 ACFR from Columbus and convert it to inline XBRL format. So what you're seeing on this first slide is a couple of the pages from the beginning, including the cover page. And the point I wanted to make by extracting these two pages is that the fidelity that you're used to, the high quality, high gloss kind of documents that the biggest ACFR filers file, that doesn't have to be lost by converting to inline XBRL, because again, inline XBRL is HTML, and you can do all sorts of wonderful things in HTML. So moving on to the meat of it. So here you see just example of similar to what Campbell showed earlier, one of the financial statements tagged. This uses a JavaScript viewer that was contributed by Workiva Corporation. And you basically would click any item on here, and on the right, you would see the metadata from the taxonomy. And just to make it clear, in case it hasn't been implicitly obvious, for the last 5 years, XBRL US has stood up a working group that has made about 5 versions of a demonstration taxonomy. The last one that came in conjunction with University of Michigan and now University of Denver. These are more production-ready, commercial-level taxonomies, and they are on offer to GASB, SEC, MSRB, who'd ever like to leverage it. And then finally, I just wanted to show you how this might relate to the Hinkle system. So on the right, I've taken an extract of the Hinkle system output. And again, Ohio is just such an incredible leader in terms of local government transparency. You can go to the state auditor's website and download these very detailed spreadsheets with all these 700 plus data points from all the governments in Ohio. So already the 2022 data is available. And so you can see I've made some arrows showing that, for example, the inventories, it ties out directly. So inventories for governmental activities, 948. It's, if you see at the top, it's in thousands of dollars, and that's in fact what was keyed into the Hinkle system. Others have to be derived. So for example, cash and cash equivalents, that's 3 financial statement items added up. So to move forward with this pilot, if Columbus and Ohio are interested, we'd have to work on a mapping between the elements in the standard Hinkle system now and what appears on local government actors. So any concluding comments from either of you about perhaps the future, what you see going forward?
I would be remiss if I didn't use the opportunity, given the number of incredibly influential, folks in this room, to just really ask for your partnership to walk kind of hand in hand with local governments right now, who are not the anomalies like the city of Columbus, to be able to satisfy the who, the what, and the when, keeping it as informed as possible, giving us as many resources as you possibly can, and just know that change management will be real, but you have a number of folks who are very much partners to this conversation.
Yeah, and I think I would just close by saying, the auditor puts before us every day effective, efficient, transparent government, and this is another way to take this is a way to take that to an even higher level than we're at currently. The concerns are for our local governments, and how are they, how do we accomplish, how does it get accomplished for them or including them in this process?
Terrific. Well, thanks both of you very much, and thanks for your attention.